One of the hardest things I think about owning a business, growing a nonprofit, trying to reach more people, scale, is growing pains. At every stage of our organization, no matter what it is, there's always kind of that thing, that next hire we need to make, or like, how do we get to that next threshold of fundraising? How do we reach that next caliber of foundations or grants? There's always something. And even when we celebrate the wins and hit those targets, you kind of struggle with, okay, but now we need to invest again in our organization to do some of these things. And it can be scary. And I'm really excited about our guest today because she has a software company and they've had to pivot. They've had to niche down. They've had to evolve. They've grown and learn from their customers and learn from those around them to kind of figure out where's the next best place they want to invest in their organization. So for you, if you're thinking, okay, well, where are we going to spend the money in order to make the most impact? I think that's a really hard thing for nonprofits to do. Those growing pains really hurt a lot. And so I'm really excited for you to take a listen to this podcast. If you're in a space where you're like, yeah, we have some things we want to do. We need to expand. We need to get a new physical location or a bigger location, or we need to invest in some software or a CRM or whatever it might be. That fear of, will we be able to continue to support it? Will we be continuing to grow? Will the funds still come in? This is what we're talking about today. And my guest today is Deirdre Tshien. She is the co-founder and CEO of Capsho, the fastest way to get clients from your content. Capsho is an AI-powered content marketer that helps entrepreneurs who podcast, vlog, and live stream create repurposed content that converts. From one audio or video upload, Capsho helps create little descriptions, social media posts, blog posts, lead magnets, LinkedIn newsletter, images, and short video clips. We are using Capsho for our show notes, so you definitely can check it out. It's been really helpful. We're using it for social media posts, but we can talk more about that at another time. She is the creator of the Honey Trap Method, author of Honey Trap Marketing, and host of the Win with Content game. She is a 2023 honoree of the 100 Women to Know in America. Such a great conversation. I really appreciate her authenticity, her openness about the growth of her organization, Capsho. And while it's not a nonprofit, there's so many amazing ways that you can take what she's learned and apply it to your business as well. So I really think you're going to enjoy this episode, and you'll have to let me know. If you want to know more about Capsho and how we're using it, email me hello@thefirstclick.net. I'd love to talk to you about it. But before we get into this episode, it is brought to you, of course, by Do Good University. So if you're looking for a place to support you or your team in offline and online marketing strategies, online and offline fundraising strategies, this is the go-to place for small to medium-sized nonprofits. If you've got an event that you want to maximize, if you're just not quite making as much money with your paddle raise or fund a need, if you're struggling with how to message how you're talking to people, one-on-one conversations with donors, how do you retain donors? How do you make the most and get marketing done with your small team? That is what we do inside of Do Good University. And my favorite part is that Patrick Kirby and I go live every single week to answer your questions. And it's just for the community. So you can come and learn alongside like-minded professionals who are struggling with the same things you are. Get your questions answered, or even just come and learn. Hear what other people are working on, get inspired, and increase your impact. So you can learn more about Do Good University at thefirstclick.net/DGU, that's the letter U, and sign up for a free 2-week trial. Come hang out with us for a couple weeks, see all of the amazing resources that are on the back end of the platform. I would love to see you there. And if you have questions about this, again, hello@thefirstclick.net. I'd love to answer them for you, or even hop on a quick call and see if this is something that's the right fit for you. Let's get into the episode. You're listening to the Digital Marketing Therapy Podcast. I'm your host, Sammy Bedell-Mulhern. Each month, we dive deep into a digital marketing or fundraising strategy that you can implement in your organization. Each week, you'll hear from guest experts, nonprofits, and myself on best practices, tips, and resources to help you raise more money online and reach your organizational goals. Hey friends, please join me in welcoming Deirdre Tshien to the podcast. Deirdre, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this chat.
Yeah, I love the conversation about growth and scalability from a mindset perspective, because I think a lot of times we have conversation about this and you hear people talk about, oh, I'll help you get to 6 figures, or I can help you raise $1 million. And really it's more just about how can we process that in our brains to even understand how we can get there. So I would love for you to just start with kind of maybe a story or kind of how you've worked through growth, because I know you have a very successful business, and maybe your own personal journey with how you've had to kind of tackle that mindset side of growth and scalability yourself.
Yeah, it's crazy because anyone who starts any kind of project, whether it's a business or anything really, sometimes it's so hard. Like we either project really, really far, like you when it's like, we're like this successful, like super, like on our private yachts or whatever is that dream is, right? We either like project all the way there, or we literally have no clue as to what growth could look like and where that could take us. So it's actually a really, really funny concept when you think about it, just conceptually. And that's always what I think I've struggled with, like even when, and I know this is kind of taking it a little bit of a tangent, but I'll come back definitely to your question. But, every time someone's asked me in like, whether it's a mastermind setting or like and they're like, what is your 5-year goal? Or, what's your ultimate? And, I'm like, I actually don't know. Like really right now, all I'm focused on is building a sustainable business that can be profitable. And like, that's literally, the next thing in front of me. And so, I guess that sort of speaks to a bit of like my mindset to growth. It's, I probably don't, I've tried, but I've struggled to always to follow the quote unquote rule book around, project yourself 5 years out and, work backwards from there, because I'm like, man, 5 years, especially when you talk about business, is a lifetime. It is so like things change so drastically, even in 1 year, even in 6 months. I'm like, how do I even think about 5 years? So mindset wise for me, as it pertains to growth, it's really like, okay, what is the immediate next goal that we're trying to get to? For us, it might be acquiring users. So, our next goal is to get 50 more users into Capsho, for example, or, whatever that is. And then what do we need in place to actually facilitate that? Because it's not as easy as just like, market more. I mean, yes, that's the starting point of it. But then there's, the infrastructure, the stuff that has to support that as well on an ongoing basis, because ultimately if you want to build a sustainable business, like that's all the stuff that you have to think through. So yeah, it does get into, more of the tangible nitty gritty when I think about growth, I guess.
Well, and I love that as an answer, because you're in the tech AI space, which, to your point, like 5 years from now, who knows what that's even gonna look like. And so I think you're doing yourself a disservice by having a 5-year plan, because you're not allowing yourself the ability to kind of evolve and interact with the industry as it is growing also. And I think for nonprofits also in this space, the parallel there that I'd run is regardless of how you feel about the politics of this country, it is changing on a daily basis. And so same thing is true. Like as we think about growth of our organization, it's more, how can we stay hyper focused on what we want to do and kind of shut out the noise? So I love your example of, okay, let's get hyper specific. We need 50 new subscribers. How do we do that? And then kind of focusing on that as opposed to the big picture. Because the other thing that I'll say is from the nonprofit side is a lot of times our problem we're trying to solve is so big that if we think about it as a whole picture, it's overwhelming. And then we get lost in kind of where do we go and what's that next step? So how have you and your organization kind of managed that also there's so many things we can do. There's so many things we're excited about. How do we hyper focus on like what is part of our mission, our vision, and like kind of stay true to where we do want to go?
Yeah, and that has been a journey. Like, let me tell you. So, even if I talk about Capsho itself, so we launched in mid 2022. So we're coming up to, kind of we're 2.5-ish years now, and like in that 2.5 years, and this is what I mean. Like, time in business is just not even relative. Like, it's crazy. Like, we have had so many iterations of our product. Because it's been because of I guess we when we think that we're focusing, but we're not really. Like when you step back and you look at it and you see what you've built, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is this is so not focused. So it has been a struggle to get to the point now where we're actually trying to go as super lean as possible and just like really targeted, like to your point, like using the word hyper focused. Some of the things that has happened, for example, like, we launched, as I said, mid 2022. That was before ChatGPT. That was before, AI really took off. And when that happened, and then, we had a slew of competitors as well in the podcasting space, then we had to really think about, like, long and hard about, what was our position in the market. And that was just one example where we had to kind of go back to basics and, again, focus. Because when we looked at our product, we were like, oh my gosh, we built stuff for, agencies, we built stuff for like podcasters because when we originally set out, it was always going to be experts who podcast. So we're talking like coaches, consultants, service providers, people who are sharing some kind of expertise in their content. But then we started, through that journey talking to, podcasts about Dungeons and Dragons and just like, comedy style podcast, all these different types of podcasts. And I think we kind of like lost our way from a product perspective. And so even at that point, when we had to kind of really look and be like, okay, well, we have to, like, this isn't going to work. We have to sort of, put a stake in the ground as to this is our position in the market. We had to strip it all back again. And so for us, it's like a constant challenge of like, okay, are we staying true to like what we said? And it doesn't mean that you have to be so rigid, because I know there has to be growth as well in what you do, but growth shouldn't be, and I've learned this the hard way, like you can't push the speed of growth sometimes, because then you end up like we did with like we had like a really buggy product. Like we were trying to code, like our developers were coding at such a rate that we couldn't go back, and our error handling was really terrible, and we were basically losing people because what we had built was like a leaky bucket. And so there's just so many downsides now when I think about it, to not focusing and not staying true to what it is that you do, who you serve, and for what purpose. And so now, fast forward, 2.5 years, and I said it's been a long journey for us to learn or relearn a lot of these lessons, where like, okay, the product is the product. We know exactly who it is that we're serving. All our messaging can be really, really tight. And now it's like on a weekly, almost daily basis, our team look at, what it is that we have prioritized and what the things that we're working on. And I'm constantly asking, like, are these the right things? Like, let's just really critically go, is this the thing that's going to move the dial? Like again, going back to the example, if our whole goal is to get 50 more users, 50 more subscribers, like, is this thing that we've prioritized that we're working on today, is this actually going to help us do that? And so that's how we kind of now stay really super hyper focused on what it is that we're doing.
It's so good. And I kind of love that lesson that you shared, because we talk about this all the time, where it feels scary to hyper niche down and to be like, okay, well, somebody came to us and said, we have this really great opportunity and I would love for you to come into this vertical and like create for this. And then you do it and you realize that it's a disservice to the people that you're actually serving. I think that's a beautiful example, and love that you shared that. But kind of so as you're evaluating what's working, what's not, is this actually getting us to our goal? When you kind of see a gap in your ability to be able, so you're sitting in the meeting and you say, okay, well, we think this strategy is going to work, and we think it's completely in alignment with getting us to this goal faster, but we need to allocate X amount of resources. You're kind of putting a little bit of faith out there that the strategy is going to work. And also kind of knowing that if you don't do it, you're not going to get there. So how do you kind of reconcile those two things together in your brain and kind of push forward and like take that leap of faith to kind of make that investment in your business again?
Yeah. For us, so I have got... So, for example, we actually, my co-founder went to Podfest recently. I'm not sure if you were there or if you know about it, but it was a month ago, basically. And I remember having a conversation with her. She was like, yeah, she met like a couple of people, and they actually have a slightly different need from what Capsho bread and butter does. Like they have sort of more of a volume need. They have and so we would have to essentially do development work, which for us is an investment, right? Like that's us prioritizing, because everything's about prioritization, because there's 100 different things that you want to be doing all at the same time. And, we have to be really we have to sort of move the pieces of the puzzle in the right way. And even when I had that conversation with her, the old me, the person who's like, yes, let's just do everything right now, would have jumped at the chance, because to your point, it's like, okay, well, I see that there's a need. There's definitely people verbalizing that, they're saying that. But when the more that I spoke to her, I was like, well, let's just get them to maybe try Capsho just for what it is right now. And if they then, off the back of that, want to commit to say, for us to build this, then, kind of they've got to put their money where their mouth is in a way. And so definitely for me, it's like, okay, if we can see that, yes, people are willing to pay, literally pay, because that's the highest form of currency that, you can get in any kind of experiment, then, okay, this is then worth going down. But if they're not, because we can talk to so many people, they will all have different needs. And all of them will sound good. All the ideas are good. There is no bad idea, right? But again, as a business, as a not-for-profit, we have such limited resources that we have to actually put really, really clear check marks and criteria in for ourselves to be like, okay, well, what is actually going to make it past to the next thing? And so if any idea that we have, I'm always like, okay, is there truly a market for it? I.e., are people willing to actually pay for this? And not just say that they are, because again, it's easy to say that, and people want to be really positive.
100%.
So they'll always be like, of course we'll support you. They want to be supportive, right? But no. Will they actually take out their credit card, put their details in, see a payment go through? And if they are, then it's like, okay, this is an idea then worth pursuing. That's kind of that's where we've gotten to in terms of how we develop or think about prioritization.
Yeah. It's so good. I think, some of my biggest heroes in the nonprofit space, when board members come to them with good ideas, will say, that's a great idea. Would you like to spearhead the committee to make that happen? And if they're not willing to say yes, then it's like, well, this is what our priorities are. So if you really want to try to do that, by all means, get back to us on how we can support you in spearheading that project. But I also love it from the donor perspective, which I haven't necessarily thought of, in that if you're in a conversation with the donor or, an investor maybe in your space, and they also say hey, we see this need, we see this void, feeling comfortable to immediately say, okay, well, great. Well, what are you willing to invest in making that happen? Because I think we tend to go the other way and say, oh, well, they won't give us money unless we make that happen, versus saying, what are you going to do on the front end to help us make this happen if it is your idea that you're coming to the table with? And I think that's such a good mindset shift for us to really just say, well, this is what our plan, this is what we're focused on, and we love this, and this could fit in really well with the work that we're doing. What are you willing to invest right now in order to help us take that forward? It seems like a natural and easy progression that we don't think about, because we're just we kind of tense up.
Yeah, and it's I actually wouldn't say it's super easy. It sounds really easy, and it's simple in concept. It's actually really hard, because I think just human nature, where a lot of us are quote unquote pleasers, or we want to do a good job, we want to get praise, we want to all of these things, right? We want all the positive things. So it's kind of natural, I think, for us to just be yes, we can do, because we can as well. That's the thing. We know that we can do anything that we set our mind to. I actually think it's a really hard thing to do to be disciplined enough to be like, no. Like we could do it, of course, but hey, again, let's go back to our objective markers, our criteria as to what will actually count as being able to progress something forward.
Yeah. Well, you talked earlier about like growth and how you went into a vertical that didn't necessarily make the right sense at the time, and you kind of had to back up and rewind and kind of reassess. But part of growth and scaling is in reaching new networks, reaching new people, reaching new problems that people have. So as you kind of work through these things as a team, kind of where do you kind of say, okay, yeah, we're killing it here. So we are at a place where it's time to start to invest in another area or to start kind of increasing the way that we solve this problem. Kind of, do you have benchmarks in place so that you can feel comfortable with like, yep, we're ready to tackle the next thing?
For us, because we are really close to our community, to our Capshovians. So we're always listening to their feedback. And when we get something that's repeated, like for example, just very recently we launched our image and clipping studio. So traditionally with Capsho, and just for way background in case anyone doesn't know what Capsho does, we basically take audio or video files. So anyone who like we're talking podcast episodes, trainings, YouTube videos, webinars, any of that, you upload that into Capsho and we create content marketing assets. Everything from like social media posts to blog posts to LinkedIn newsletters, all the way to now images and short form video clips. And so when we started, it was very much in the text-based assets that we did. And recently we launched image and clipping because people were telling us that, they had these multiple subscriptions. They're like, we love Capsho. We know how good quality, like how high quality your stuff is. We would love it if you could like do X, Y, Z so that we can just shelve all these other subscriptions, can you help us? And it was like the first one's like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. We'll put that in the backlog. But, once you hear it again and again and again, then you're like, oh, okay, we kind of have to move with where the market, i.e. our users are going as well. And so we use that as a big determinator as to what it is that we're going to be working on next. Definitely listening to, the people who are paying us because, they're paying us for a reason. So, yeah.
I think that's super smart. And I think you're listening to the masses. So like the caveat that I would share here in the nonprofit space is that you are not listening to, like, I think it's easy for us to take a listen to the one big donor or like the one big foundation or the one big grantor that's giving us funds. But the power is in the subscribers or your monthly donors or the people that are there by your side regularly, the people that donate to you multiple times. They're the mouthpiece. They're the ones that are sharing about your product or your service or your nonprofit with the world. So I love that that's where you kind of take your foundation from. And also understanding that while and had a reason for why you started this organization in the first place, that you aren't necessarily the one who's getting the benefit of it. And so that you might not know what people need. We talk about this all the time, that I'll issue podcast episodes where I'm like, I killed it. This one was great. And people are like, yeah, that was okay. And then there's some where I'm like, yeah, that was an okay episode. And it like blows up. Like we have no idea what content is we can do our best, but we don't fully know what's really going to resonate with our audience in the moment. And so I love that you're listening to them, taking it in and allowing the consistent answers that you're getting to dictate how you move forward, not just your own ego or your own great ideas or you thinking this could be awesome. I think that's really smart.
Yeah. And, it's the thing too is that when you start on this, it's everything. I talk about things like, it's easy to talk about them because I guess we've been through the journey. But that's the thing. It's like this stuff is not easy to do as well, because I can tell you when we first started, like I was, you mentioned ego and things like that. Like I was 100% driven by all those things, even my own ego, to be like, okay, I want like the most, the biggest product, the one that would do, will do everything. And again, I go back to, what contributed as well to a really buggy product, leaky bucket, all of that. And it was it was that approach. And so I had to unlearn a lot of, because again, I'm a yes people pleaser, so I was like, everything that came, I was like, yes, okay, we'll do that, even if it was just one person asking for this, like one, not an easy thing, could have even been a big thing. But I was so used to just being like, okay, like we just want to please people. And so it took a lot of, again, discipline and willpower to kind of like shut that off a little bit and be like, okay, we're still listening. Like we hear you, but it's on the backlog, but it's in the prioritization set. Like we need to get more people asking about this for it to get pushed up. So it's not an easy thing to do by any stretch of the imagination. But, the more that you can like stay close to the end users or consumers of what it is that you're doing and just constantly getting that feedback, then the more that you can move with the market and stay relevant.
Yeah. So good. Okay. I want to flip gears just a little bit because I'm really curious about your thoughts on this because, you mentioned you started your software before ChatGPT and now there's been this huge explosion in all things AI and so, the software, the SaaS it's always been kind of crazy. But so to enter into that space and then to see all these competitors come out, they're all doing different types of things. Like, where does the imposter syndrome come in? How do you kind of process success? Like, how do you still stay centered into, like, all these other organizations are doing these crazy things. We're doing this. We're doing really well here. We're not doing, like, how do you kind of manage all of that as you're starting to grow and scale in competition with others while still kind of stay true to what you originally started this to be?
Yeah, I probably don't have a healthy way of doing this. If we're going to be honest, when the competition really started to heat up, it was like literally, it felt like every day a new platform would launch, and we'd look at it and be like, oh, on the surface it seems like they're doing so much more, or whatever it is. It got to a point where I was like, this is just not serving. Like it's not healthy to be, constantly second guessing yourself, constantly doubting, what it is that you're doing. So I just kind of like, in a way, switched it off. I was like, I don't get, like, we're going to stay in our own lane. I mean, I hear it when people are like, it's really important to keep your finger on the pulse, and it is. But then there is, like, where it gets a bit, it starts to not be of benefit to you to continue down that path. So, I kind of had to be really, really, kind of almost have clear boundaries around that, to be like, okay, well, I can't, know more about what X, Y, Z is doing, and, versus us. And because it's just not, and at the end of the day, you're kind of like, you're running your own race. Like, I truly believe that. For all of us, like, the game is there for any of us to win. Truly, like, the only person or people that can actually, like, that can help you lose is yourself at the end of the day. And so when I think about that, I'm like, okay, well, it doesn't really matter what other competitors are doing. Like, it's, they're serving their own audience. They've got their own thing going. We're serving our audience. We have our own thing going. Let's just, like, stay true to that. So yeah, again, it's been a big learning, but I kind of have had to kind of, like, tune all that noise out, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the thing that I always come back to is the only businesses that fail are those that quit. If you keep going, you have the opportunity to see what you can become. And I love the abundant mindset that kind of keeps coming through and all of the things that you're saying, and that we don't need to be all things to all people. We need to be the best versions of ourselves to the people we choose to serve. And there are enough of them to help us support our business and help us grow. And what that turns into in 5 years, who knows? But we're open to possibility. And I think that, especially for a lot of listeners, because I know we have a lot of people in smaller communities, the same is true. Like, you might feel like you don't have enough customers or donors because you live in a small community, but kind of changing that mindset to kind of what you're saying, and can really make a big difference in making a strong core of your people, and then opening up to possibility from where that can come. So I love that. Well, so I just kind of want you to share kind of any last thoughts about, I know you said you don't have a 5-year plan, and I'm like, I don't even have a 6-month plan right now because we have a lot of things we're testing this year, and then we're just going to kind of see what happens. So I feel you there.
Yes.
But kind of what are you, in this ever-changing world that you live in, what are you excited about? Like what is coming up for Capsho and your organization that you're just really kind of looking forward to as you kind of think about growth and scale for your business?
Oh gosh. Yeah, like in terms of, I just always go back to, like the thing that always really drives us and lights us up is if we can help our Capshovians succeed as well. So, our whole ethos is like, how do we help entrepreneurs who are creating content get more leads from and clients from their content. And so that's what we're like just super focused on is like, okay, how can we really help facilitate that? So I'm always just excited about, the problem that is that and solving and helping to solve that. And, I truly think that if we can help people succeed, then, there's no way that we can't succeed. So that's, I guess, to answer your question, that's kind of the thing that I'm always most excited about.
I love that. And I love software companies and platforms and AI that does still heavily bring in that human element, because I think having a brand, this is my own soapbox, so like this has nothing to do with anything, but just my own feeling is that like having brands that are just helping people do better at what they already do really well at and keeping that human element in community while also like integrating some of those AI elements to help us save time. Like I love that balance for businesses. And I think it's so needed so that we don't just completely lose touch with where we're going and how we're connecting with people. So I love that you said that. But Deirdre, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Capsho, and just kind of see all the cool things that you all are doing, how can they do that?
Yeah, definitely. I would love if you are creating some kind of audio or video content. So as I mentioned, it could be a podcast, it could be a YouTube channel, it could be just trainings and courses or webinars that you're doing, and you want to amplify the message that you're creating already, then I would love for you to check out Capsho. That's at capsho.com, capsho.com. And Sammy's going to, in the show notes, drop a special code for her audience that where you can get 50% off forever. So instead of paying $99 a month, you pay only $49 a month for as long as you're with Capsho. But if you want to give it a go, it's 7-day free trial just at capsho.com.
I love that. And you can find all the links to all the things from this episode at thefirstclick.net/304. Thank you so much for being here and being open and just sharing kind of how you have been working through growth and scale in your organization. I can't wait to see. You guys have a long way to go. I mean, you're still a baby company.
We are. Yep. Super baby.
I love it.
So young.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.
Okay, so are you inspired to take that next step? You are not alone. Growing is difficult. It's hard and it's fun and it's exciting at the same time and it's extremely stressful, but you can do it. The more that you kind of push yourself, push those boundaries, figure out exactly what it is that you do and how you can best serve your community, the bigger the impact you're going to make on your community and the world. So make sure you check out the show notes for additional resources at thefirstclick.net/304. Head on over to YouTube at Digital Marketing Therapy. Drop in the comments what your favorite takeaway is. What strategy are you excited to implement? What surprised you? What didn't surprise you? What are you kind of most excited to kind of share with your colleagues? And on that note, share this episode with somebody who's also going through growing pains and might need some additional support. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And thank you so much for taking time to join us. Again, thefirstclick.net/304 for the show notes, and I'll see you in the next one.